Welcome back to Creative Thinkers. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and again, we're bringing an excellent guest, Roberto Salas, visual artist. Roberto, thanks for joining us.
Oh, well, thanks for having me here, Miguel. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So you have a lot of experience in your life. You've been through so many things. But did you start in El Paso? Because remember you told me that you were born here, but then at a very young age, you decided to go out and venture and see what was out there.
I sprouted wings.
Yeah, what was that all about?
Around 16, but they sort of tied those wings, said, well, wait a couple of years. But I did, in doing so, I actually was one of the first students at community college.
Really?
Which was at Fort Bliss in Barracks. A little on the crude side, but, they were educating people. And then I jumped to UTEP, and then by that time, I just figured, it's time. And I left.
What was the reason for leaving, though? I mean, you were getting an education here.
Yeah, I just need a little more stimulation. And I think location is an important thing, because not only is it a university, it's where things are happening. I was really interested in contemporary work at the time, and I wanted to see more. It was limited here, it was very limited. And so I actually found a brochure, applied to some art schools, and one of them said, yes, come on over.
So where did you end up going? What city?
San Francisco Art Institute.
And how was that different from being in El Paso? Because you spoke a little bit about stimulation. What types of things stimulated you in San Francisco?
10th power of stimulation, because there was film, there was theater, it was the 70s. Things were happening. And luckily, I had visited the Bay Area because I have family there.
Right.
And as a result, it just fit. It was good work.
What kinds of things or influences did you have while being in San Francisco?
Well, like I said, the actual school itself was mind-blowing. I lived in Chinatown, and San Francisco is a multicultural, international point that, it's changed, but it does have its incredible culture, and that mix is what it brings everything else. So I was looking for that, and it had incredible food that I had
of course
not tasted.
Yeah, we just got back from San Francisco about a year ago, and I know how exciting it is just to be in a city like that.
Yes.
When you're in that environment, what impulses you to do different things?
Well, I concentrated on being in school, and even though it took me several schools to get to where I am and get a BFA, Bachelor's of Fine Arts, from the University of Albuquerque, and then from there I transferred over to California, where, again, there was a couple of grad schools I applied to, and not too many, two, East Coast, West Coast. West Coast said, please, come on over. So it was like, yes. So from there, it just, work started. But there was work before, during, and I think the grad school gave me the stepping stone to be able to teach anywhere in the world.
And what kinds of things, because you mentioned artwork, what kinds of art do you make? What kind of art do you create?
Well, one of the things I brought examples is one first piece that I want to talk about is the fact that during the so-called 500-year celebration that happened a few years of our friend Columbus.
Right.
Yeah, there were shows, and I applied, and I didn't get into them. And
right.
There was a grant from the Andy Warhol Foundation to talk about issues and money, and so I decided to propose Nina Pinta Santa Maria, these ladies that you're seeing on the screen here that actually intervene and did attacks into these openings.
And the attacks were kind of symbolic in some way?
Symbolic attacks, yeah. Or interventions is a better word, I'd say, to use. Attack it's like an assalto.
Yeah, it's very aggressive, right?
Right, but it's an assalto when they do a serenata, when they do music.
Right.
Some people say, un assalto,
Exacto.
So anyway, it was good, and then they had stamps, and they'd make everybody Catholic, so they wanted not, and a little stamp on their forehead. Some people, if I walked into, these young ladies were aggressive, they're professionals, and anyway, they were beautiful. And people were just amazed, and they just went through the crowd.
So this is more of a performance art piece, right?
Art, yes.
And maybe a little bit of a conceptual art piece?
Very much so, conceptual.
How does that work into a lot of the work that you do?
Well, you have to conceptualize what you're going to do, Even I conceptualized how we're going to do this thing before I came here.
Right.
Like, okay, But you just take themes, you take ideas, or there are certain criteria that one can go by. And if we can move further from here, I'm going to show you a next piece that has the which was the next piece? May I have a little clue on that? Because my phone went out. Oh, here it is. Oh, okay.
Okay, tell us about the next
This
piece.
is for the love of libraries. This is a big Itznama. It's the facade of Southwestern College.
So talk to us about the design itself, because it's very ancient Mesoamerican.
Yes.
And I think that's very much a part of who you are as an individual.
Well, it carries through the genre of works that I do.
Right.
But then it goes in, these are monumental pieces that take a lot of people, you know, and I'm just a spearhead, but I'm very grateful to people who make this happen.
Right.
But the president of the college charged me with finding something that had to do with the Maya architecture, and I found Itznama.
Okay, what is that?
Deity D from the Maya culture, taught us the art of writing, reading.
Nice.
Scripts.
Right.
Beautiful. And I found him in a stone, and then I stylized him. And so what you're seeing here is details of what you do. And it's limestone concrete with a gigantic stencil made out of plastic, sandblasted.
So you sandblast through the concrete,
to
expose what we see in the dark layer.
Right.
And that actually makes the design itself?
Yes, it's like drawing with a big sandblast.
How do you come up with these ideas? I mean, we've only seen a couple, and we're going to talk about more, but how do you come up with the idea of this I'm going to stencil, this I'm going to draw, this is going to be steel?
Budget and time and other constraints that go along with the criteria of the public art piece, because, you know, I can't spend all that money in it. I have to pay staff, I have to pay insurance, I have to pay myself to, you know, this is how I make my living. So those things come forth that way.
So for example, if you're creating something on a wall, it would be different than if it was going to be a freestanding kind of sculpture in the round type of thing.
Right. Like my work's divided in two-dimensional, three-dimensional.
Right.
The murals, you know, sometimes are a little more lucrative because they don't take so much involvement. I have, you know, a staff. Everybody needs a staff. One can't do things by themselves.
Very true.
And plus, that also allows for collaboration, allows for education or for mentoring. But
mentoring is important.
Oh, very much so. I've always been a firm believer. I've had some good mentors in my life. Thank you out there. I know who you are. But those things are little encaminaditas. Somebody walks you by the hand. Look this way, you know, or pulls you from the ear and says, "You're not looking that way."
Right.
Which are important factors when it comes to that. I have another piece. I did it in Watts in Los Angeles. It was part of the Metro line. It's called 103rd Street Station, and it connects from Long Beach to LA.
And this is actually in one of the stops, so it has to be more of a sculptural element.
Yes, platform, totem. And that was influenced by Simon Rodea's Watts Towers. So that's something that I would hope reference. People go look up Watts Towers.
Right.
Great story.
Which are incredible. And they are now a piece that is highly kind of protected, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a historical national monument.
Yeah, it really is. National monument now.
So I'm next to him, you know. You actually take that station and walk to that
That's
place.
where you get off.
Yeah.
And one of the elements that you spoke to me about are the elements on the top. And those happen to be the hole punches that they used back in the day. Why did you choose that element?
Well,
because I think it's very interesting.
A lot of this work that I do, it has to be site-specific, and this is the key, is research. Because, you know, one of the interesting things is that I am, this is social practice where I'm thinking of the community and who uses that station.
Right.
It's not a personal thing. I have to really connect with who uses that, what's the neighborhood, and that site-specificity is important. And then there's also ownership, participation. Who are going to be the docents of these, the people who live there, you know? So those connections are symbiotic in order for public art, because it's easy to paint a painting and it's there, you know?
Yeah, that has nothing to do with
which
the
I
people
do
that
and I
live
respect,
there.
and I paint on the off time, and I'm not doing these huge projects.
Right.
But I really hardly ever have exhibitions. It's mostly these are permanent pieces and monumental and challenging.
Which I think is great, because you say you don't have exhibitions very often, but yet you have these on exhibition all the time.
Yes, permanent. There's a certain permanency to
I really love
these,
that.
which, you know, then they're going to outlive me.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a contribution that'll have time and tide and will slowly hold out. But I like that. It's a permanency.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you jump into this whole kind of type of artwork as opposed to sitting at home and making paintings and exhibiting them? It's very different.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think, it comes from being an advocate for youth and people like me that needed attention that I'm now giving to them.
Oh, nice.
Because, there were a few influences, and these influences are things that I was doing community work.
Right.
I actually did a lot of work in California between schools of organizing communities for alternative energy like solar and things like that.
Back in the day?
Yes, way back in between schools.
So as they say, you were out on the field already.
I was in the field.
So then you saw what needed to be done, and then you apply, I guess?
Right.
Very nice.
Apply it to actual homes that actually get a benefit from it.
That's pretty cool.
Low tech, high tech, or low tech, Aztec, we were doing it, and it was through some funding that came through research and development.
And what about the next design?
Well,
because you have so many to talk about.
Oh, there are, but I want to move to these stones that I bring in from upstate New Mexico, and they're big monolith sandstones, and I've been using them in parks. But it's
not the only piece you've made like that?
No, there's been several.
Cool.
And but the cool thing about this is that I had a 40-member focus group that wanted me to give their input. You can imagine when I got home, I had a headache, and I said, how am I going to please all these people? But those are the challenges of public art, like please everybody in this group.
So there is a group that may come up and say, these are the kinds of things we're looking for.
I was selected as the artist, but then the group is within the community. So not only are you dealing with the city entity that's hiring you to do, because municipalities have 1% or 2% for the art for capital improvements, and then they bring an artist and you compete, you bid, they see your work, you interview, but then within that, there's the community. So anyway, I pleased everybody because everything they said in the list, I included in this big giant pizza made out of concrete. Right. And I did a relief with everything.
Like on the floor?
A relief pizza, and it's now you see the sandbox. It's covered with sand. There's a legend where you can go find the pizza. It has a bite on it, and
Oh, really?
With quadrants.
Yeah.
So you can see the kids here having a blast. They'll look, and the sand shifts and moves, and moms can wait with strollers, and these big monolithic stones are pointing in their direction. So
I really love the monolithic stones, and that reminds me of Stonehenge.
Well,
Did you have some kind of connection to that?
Well, I think
conceptually, I mean.
Well, yes, and linkage, heritage linkage. I am borrowing from my ancestors.
Nice.
As they say, I'm appropriating.
Right.
Or I'm a continuing link to these artists, because think about it, I am two-sided here.
Right.
Maybe this is, let's say, I want to say that the right's European and this side is native,
Right.
And those things at that collision, I am a continuing product of that connection from the two cultures. And I can claim both and I can appropriate from both because it's I justify it because I am from there.
Well, that is who you are, period.
That's who I am, right?
That's
So
exactly right.
From that, I just continuing the artwork. I guess I've been an artist all my life since I was born.
Yeah, it really excites me because I'm also an artist, so I'm all about creativity.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I want to ask you about. How important is creativity within everybody's life? Because I think that a lot of people don't believe or, I guess, associate to creativity.
Right. You know what that whole list is? Permission to dream. I think, and that's a message for parents. You've got these kids, and the responsibility goes also, physically and psychologically.
Right.
But, you want to have a kid, the fact that if a kid wants to dream, let him dream. It doesn't cost anything to dream.
Right.
Play along with it. Oh, I want a Cadillac when I'm grand. Rather than to bring the reality, well, when you work, you can get your own. Take a minute. What color would you like that Cadillac? Indulge a little. Oh, really? And what about the interior? And if you start giving that kid that respect to that dream that he has conceptually, and he's telling it to you, don't squash it. Because when you squash it, there's no room for creativity. There's no room. So he's creating in his mind. It's not going to happen immediately. Maybe one day when he's an old man like me, he'll have the Cadillac.
Right.
But those are things that I say, encourage your kids. If you encourage your kid to study art, doesn't matter what, support that kid, because out of art, he can be an architect. Look at me, I wanted to be an architect, and I'm doing architectural things.
Right.
But I couldn't because I have dyslexia. Bad. But those are things, hey, get that kid, he can be a photographer. What kind of photographer? There's so much spectrum, interior, he could work for L or whatever. There's all sorts of things. There's many different types. When I teach, I said, let's look at ourselves. Everything that you're wearing is a design. It was a drawing. It's a sketch. Somebody did that from a bare sketch and put it to that production. There's jobs up there as artists.
Absolutely.
You just have to know how to get to it. And those myths that, ay, mijito, someone is hambre. Well, I just said
we
for
can't
those,
really subscribe to that, I think, right?
No, not anymore. Not anymore. And, you know, and that was part of me leaving here, you know, and I have a great respect for the city. I try to do what I can for it, you know, and I run a small nonprofit called Centro Artístico y Cultural Buena Vista. That. Well, that's in Buena Vista, which is the little island here in El Paso. It's a little community, good view, and it's out in the west side.
It's, if I'm not mistaken, right by the new freeway, the toll freeway, or what will be the toll freeway.
Right in there. So the whole idea that that's the base, but we do international stuff, you know, and we work. The latest project was to work with some natives from Mexico, Pai, because if you know in the California border, there were natives that were divided because of the U.S.-Mexican border.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, but the ones that are here, well, are doing financially better. The ones in Mexico was
not so much.
So I'm doing an art program. I'm starting a school out there.
So your firm belief is that art will allow you to flourish. How does it do that?
It does that by allowing that exploration that we have in our heart, because that's what I do. I've explored since I was a young man.
Right.
Know? And that's why I encourage people. That exploration sort of, and there's got to be that passion, you know, and even though sometimes there's that self-assurance, you know, when questions, you know, it's doubtful, you know, but there are rewards that happen that I think eventually, if you hold out long enough and you're persistent, and what else can I do? You know, I can't be an architect, you know, because of the math and all that stuff.
Right.
But there's ways around that, and there's the passion that I follow. And there's a lot of people out there that just need to have that little awakening. Well, follow your passion, you know. It all worked out. It all will work out.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that. So you have some other works that you're going to talk about.
Yeah, let's see, what do we have here? We have, well, we talk about Sacramento. That large building took 7 years. That project took 7 years. I was selected.
Did it really?
Yes, because what happened is the building got changed. My artwork has already designed, was influenced the change to the building. And what it is, Sacramento is known for its architecture of Victorian. Okay. So what I took is segments. And if you go down and go stroll through these to the last one, you'll see that these are GFRD big giant tiles, lightweight concrete. GFRC, fiber reinforced concrete. Lightweight, beautiful stuff, and I made these molds of Victorian architecture details and put them up against the wall and created these panels for the county data operations of Sacramento. It's a closed building only to staff, so they house all the information that has to do with those records.
How do you come up with what media you're going to be working in?
Again, it's the location. One, first and foremost, durable mediums. You know, you want something that's going to last because, you know, you're getting commissioned to do that. So make sure that you get these contracts out on time, the whole thing. But budget, can I afford this? Can I still do this? Can I have this fabricated? Or if I do this, do I not fabricate it? I fabricate. All those factors are things that one learns as you go. And the cleverer you are as far as getting things done, then perhaps the better profit you would make.
Yeah, because it seems to me like you may look at a project and say, you know what, I'm going to use concrete in this one, but in my next one, I can use a version of concrete, but maybe not the exact same thing.
Exactly.
And for me, that's very interesting because you're not closed off to any one thing. You allow yourself to think outside the box,
right?
Which is one of the main points of this show, thinking outside the box. Do you remember a moment in time that really kind of influenced you in what you're doing today?
Right.
Maybe when you were young?
Yes, I'll relate to that. But first of all, I want to use the term critical thinking.
Tell us.
And critical thinking is a real important that I try to instill in people who are, it's as you take an in-depth look at things and you layer it and you just turn it around and move it around, almost like one of those computer animation things.
Right. And
that's what I do with sight. You know, and remember, some of these commissions that I work, a lot of people actually compete. There's like as there are
Yeah, it's
jobs.
not like they just gave it to you, right?
No. I wish I was at that level in my career. I would say, oh, Mr. Salas, here, come do this. I do have gotten invitations and things like that, but these are just competitions. So anyway, but critical thinking is an important thing, and that's something that I instill in students and take them a little further outside the box.
Right.
But that moment that it clicked, E.B. Jones School, it was hot. It was a circle was right in front of the, across the freeway or the highway. And we came in, and the teacher said, second grade teacher said, we have a film about
Second
an artist.
grade.
I said, oh, really? I see.
What's an artist?
Right, what's an artist? But I knew what an artist was because I had already declared. I didn't know what kind. And I said, may we lay down on the floor? And then she rolled the blinds down and made it dark. It was cool. We were exhausted. We were coming in. You know how kids are.
Right.
In La Tierra, there was no grass in that school.
Right.
And so the projector starts to click, click.
So old school projector.
And the screen, we're on the floor, old school projector. There's a little fan blowing, and it's the film, the black and white original Jackson Pollock.
Oh, really? I have seen that.
The scene there.
I wonder why she chose that.
Because that's probably all she could get, and she had other things to do, and she'd entertain all these sweaty little kids. You know?
Right.
But that was the clincher. And what I came out of that is the freedom that this man had.
Mm-hmm.
And that freedom to do what he did was what I was seeking. And since that moment, it just clinched it. I said, that's it. And
so you could assimilate.
There was a relationship there to that freedom I was seeking, even in the second grade. Artistically or soulful or not knowing. Because sometimes, that I hate to make this reference, but, that force that they talk about, to be contigo.
Yeah.
It is true. It is true. I've had to learn how to trust that. And that's how I live my life. It's that force. I trust it. I said, it's pulling me this way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been my guide. It's been a guide. But that moment on, it was sealed. And there's a scene where there's a big piece of glass and then he's dropping.
Yes.
And so imagine you're on the floor and I was there.
Yeah.
So those.
It was like a religious experience for you?
It was a religious experience.
At such a young age, too.
At a young age.
But was that something that you always had within you, do you think?
I was born with it.
Like your mom or your parents would say, hey, ¿qué onda?
Well, I love my parents. They were very encouraging. And by the time I came around, they were well practiced with other siblings.
Oh, okay.
And so that put me as an only child because they were of a different generation.
Gosh,
I love them dearly. And, their children. But they were encouraging to a certain point where they were a little worried, but excuse me.
No worries.
They were a little worried, but
so they did think,
we get past
are you going to be able to make it as an artist?
Right. And then they would say, well, maybe you should study something else. You can fall in back. I said, well, that's a really good concept, but think about it. If I split my time, I'm not going to be good at either one.
Right.
I said, I have to go full-heartedly. So I'm divorcing you. I used to kid them. They had a good sense of humor. I'm divorcing you. I'm out of here. And thank goodness they did, because they taught me about, having a sense of humor and things. A lot of things I do have humor. I mean, there's just a big repertoire of work that hopefully one day it'll be condensed so it can be seen. And we're hoping to improve our social media. Hopefully by the time that this airs, people can look into a little more. But it's possible. It's possible. El Paso has had some really important talent, exported talent.
Absolutely.
Luis Jimenez, there's some active artists here that are changing things. We're getting an influx of young artists,
right?
Which I love. It's like, yes, we are one here, and culture doesn't stop at the border.
Oh, not at all.
And we're
talking
it's a
about big blend of everything,
yeah.
Right? And we have to come together and unite as well.
We have to come together and let people know how important it is, how we need it in schools, how we need people to come in. It's a balance. It's about actually learning how to make decisions. I love teaching, and I do a real basic. I bring crayons. I say, pick a color. Pick a color, Miguel. Which one do you want?
I will take green.
Or no, I can't pick. Well, anyway, that's good. But I said, pick the green. But I make them peel it, and then I make them break it.
And then what do they do?
Well, I liberate them from those that thinking of keep the colors in straight, in order.
Do whatever you like.
And the destruction creates a form of actually. using it sideways, which is a broader line, rather than thin line, you're writing with that line. And that contrast is, oh, one's a thick, fat line. I said, yes, you got it. What happens now? Anybody got a yellow? And then they do that. And then I cross over a yellow with the primary colors. And
Right.
oh, there's a primary lesson. But it just gives them a liberation. And you should see the drawings afterwards. The teachers, the people, the managers, whoever I do this in front of,
Right. They kind of get scared.
then I make them do it too. Because
Well,
sometimes
that's
the
good
hood
that you're incorporating
Right.
them, because I think it's very
It's very
important to bring
They're the
everybody
ones
together.
that need that.
So we're running short on time. Do you have any advice for our viewers? Something you can tell them as far as what's important about being creative,
I said,
thinking outside the
let
box?
it happen, you know. And being creative is also dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people call it conceptualizing, visualizing something of how it goes. I visualize everything because I can draw in my head and figure out things way before I actually build them.
And is everybody able to do that, you
I
think?
think so. You just have to practice a little bit. But the main thing is I think to parents is encourage their children, because the more creativity people we have, the better our society is going to be. And it reflects on many different levels.
And I agree with that, because I
well,
think
thank you.
creativity is one of the most
Right.
important things that we have available to all of us, but we don't really get our hands into it, because a lot of people don't believe that they have
Right.
that
They
creative
just gotta
sense
give it,
within
they
them.
don't allow themselves.
I think
They
so.
don't
I
allow
think
themselves.
that's the thing that happens. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, contact you, how do they do that?
RobertoSalas.com. There's all sorts of ways of getting a hold of me, you know. So RobertoSalas.com. That's easy enough.
Yeah.
But we'll flash something in this broadcast that'll give us some. But I also want to add that I am an admirer of your artwork.
Oh, thank you very much.
Because I know you're an artist, and that, you know, those are things. You're also an inspiration to a lot of other people.
Thank you.
Because aside from doing things like this and bringing people together,
Right.
you yourself have something to show and tell, and I love that. I respect that.
I really try, and I do as much as I can
Well, we do
when
what
I'm
we
able to
can.
do it.
Because life gets in the way, and there's other responsibilities, you know. But you know, it's all possible.
So Roberto, I wanted to thank you for taking your time out for being with us. It's very important for us to talk to people like yourself, so thank you very much.
My pleasure being here. Thank you, Miguel.
And I also want to thank our viewers for tuning in again. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and please come back and join us.